Alright, today we're looking at the quadratic formula, which is one more way to solve a quadratic function. So your quadratic formula is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And of course this is when it's in standard form, so when you have y, or 0, we're going to always set it equals 0, equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Sorry, that looks nothing like an a. There you go. So where a is in front of the x squared, b is in front of your x, and c is the constant that's out there by itself. So if we start off with an example, so if we have x squared plus 3x equals 2, the first thing we want to do is make sure it's in standard form. So write in standard form, and that's where you set it equal to 0. So we need to subtract the 2 over to get it in standard form. So x squared plus 3x, sorry, this looks really ugly. Let's try again. We've got x squared plus 3x minus 2 equals 0. We need to define a, b, and c. So a is in front of x squared, so there's not a number in front of x squared, so we assume it's a 1. B is in front of the x term, which is a positive 3, and c is the constant by itself, so our c is going to be negative 2 because that's a minus 2. Now we want to plug in, and I'm going to tell you to use parentheses. If you're typing this into your calculator, it's very important to put parentheses around things because you could very easily get a sign off, and that's going to change your answer significantly. So I'm going to switch colors here as we plug it in. So if we have x is equal to negative b, so our b is positive 3, so we'll have negative 3 plus or minus the square root of b squared. I'm still going to put b in parentheses because if that were to be a negative and you didn't use parentheses, your calculator would compute it incorrectly. So we've got b squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 2, all over 2 times a, which would be 2 times 1. So if we go in and we compute this, we're going to do the inside first. So we'll have 3 plus or minus over 2. So we're looking at the square root of 9 minus negative 4 times negative 2. So negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. So we've got 9 minus 8, which would be, or 9 plus 8, I'm sorry, which would be 17. So now we want to look and see if we can simplify if possible. So step 4 would be to simplify if possible. In order to simplify your number in front, a number that would be in front of your square root, so that's if when we simplify out our square root, and the bottom. The only way to reduce this at all is if all 3 of those are divisible by the same number. If you look at 17, we know that 17 is a prime number, so it only breaks down to 17 and 1, which means we don't have any pairs, so there's not a number out front, and 3, 2, and 1 are not all divisible by the same thing, so we're going to leave that as our final answer. So here our answer is going to be that x is equal to 3 plus or minus the square root of 17 over 2, which again is still 2 answers. One answer is 3 plus the square root of 17 divided by 2. The other answer would be 3 minus the square root of 17 divided by 2. Let's do another example so you can see how the simplifying goes. If we do 4x squared minus 8x plus 1 equals 0. So again, this is already in standard form. It's already set equal to 0, so we don't need to do that. So let's go ahead and define a, b, and c. A is in front of x squared, so our a is going to be 4. B is in front of x, so it'll be negative 8. And c is by itself, so it will be 1. So if we plug it in, x is equal to negative b, so this is going to be positive 8 now, plus or minus the square root of b squared. Again, make sure you put that b in parentheses, so negative 8 in parentheses squared, minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is negative 1, again, still using your parentheses, all of that over 2 times a, which is 4. So what you're always going to be doing on these is make sure you're typing underneath the square root into your calculator. You don't want to type this whole thing in at once. It's going to give you a terribly ugly answer, and that's not how I want your answer to be. So we're going to just do what's underneath the square root. So we still have our 8 plus or minus over 8. So now we need to see what's inside our square root. So we'll have negative 8 squared, which is 64. minus 4 times 4 times negative 1, which will really be plus 16. So just to note on here, so that way you remember this, this is what you want to plug into calculator. So not the square root, just the stuff underneath is what you're going to plug into your calculator or in your head. Calc. So when we do that, we end up with 48, because 64 plus, hold on just a second. Okay, it's not going well for me here because somehow I put in a negative 1 for my C. That was a positive 1. Hopefully you realize that I was being a dork back there. So that's a positive 1. So we've got 64 minus 16. That looks nothing like a positive 1. Let's just scribble it out and make it a positive 1. So we've got 64 minus 16, which is where I get my 48 that I knew the answer was supposed to be. Now we want to simplify out that square root. We know 48 breaks down into a bunch of things. So if we break this out, let's do 6 and 8. 6 breaks down to 3 and 2. 8 breaks down to 2 and 4. I don't know why my 2's aren't working. 2 and 4. And then 4 is 2 and 2. So we have 2 pairs of 2's, and a 3 is left over. So those 2 pairs of 2's are going to end up being, so we got x equals 8 plus or minus over 8. 2 and 2 come out in front, so that would multiply together to be 4. Square root of, there's a 3 left over, so 4 square root of 3. Now when we're looking at this, we can see that we've got a number in front, the number before my plus or minus, and the number beneath. If all 3 of those are divisible by the same number, then we can simplify. Notice I'm not paying attention at all to what's inside my square root. You cannot change what's inside your square root. The only way to do that is to make your factor tree so that 3, even if it was 8 or something that was divisible by 2, then you cannot simplify inside that square root. So 8, 4, and 8 are all divisible by 4, so we're going to divide all of those by 4. So it's reducing my fraction. So if I divide them all by 4, 8 divided by 4 is 2. Plus or minus, 4 divided by 4 is 1, so we just have 1 square root of 3. And 8 divided by 4 is 2. So my final answer is going to be 2 plus or minus the square root of 3 over 2. Biggest things here is you've got to really watch your simplifying, make your factor tree. Then, again, it has to be all 3 of those have to be divisible by the same number in order to reduce it at all. If not, if this 4 happened to have been a 5, then this would not have simplified at all, and we would have been left with that answer there.